Welcome to episode 69, nice, of Geeks Who Like Sports. As always, I'm Ray Carcillo in beautiful Los Angeles, California, and over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, my best friend in the entire world, Lee Elias, playing with his action figures. Lee, how's it going today, buddy?
I was not playing with my action figures. I was playing with an action figure of Darth Vader because God knows we need props on this. And this is actually funny for those of you listening at home, cut his arm off by accident, and it's actually the correct arm that I cut off, depending on what, I'm going Return of the Jedi with that one, but that's okay. Ray, I'm doing well. I'm really ready for the summer to kind of end. I'm a winter guy, and I miss it, but the only saving solace in that is that it's August and it's hockey season, and I have no problem with that. It's kind of a 180 of where we were maybe like a few months ago, where like this is amazing that sports are back. Geekdom is somehow in full effect. In fact, this episode, as you're about to tell people, is really more of a geek episode than we normally do because there's a lot of great news today.
Yes.
But above all, I want to thank everybody for being here. If you haven't already, share the podcast with a friend. We know there's a lot of geeks who like sports out there. Our audience is growing every single week, every single day. Ray and I are blown away by that. But the truth is this. As the community, it's really all of us that have to make sure that we're promoting this thing. And I think you're doing that and continue to do it. Let's bring the geek community together. Geek sports community together. I have hockey action figures too, just in case you're wondering. They're behind me, so I have action figures from both sides. But that's a long intro for me. I'm Lee, and back to you, Ray.
Yes, we got a lot of great show for you folks today. Like Lee said, though, but please promote the podcast. Give us those 5-star reviews on iTunes. We always appreciate that. We got a lot of great stuff in the future. I don't think we can talk about it quite yet, but we are planning to do a PAX Online panel again. We have some amazing guests lined up. It is going to be a massive show, so stay tuned for more details on that. That'll be in September. But for now, for this episode, we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, baseball, basketball, hockey, all on the docket. A lot of comic book news, a lot of video game news. And speaking of video games, that's where we will start off today. PlayStation had themselves a State of Play, which is one of their, kind of like a Nintendo Direct, one of their YouTube shows. A lot of stuff that was kind of like just more information about things we knew. We did mention, of course, the Spider-Man and Avengers exclusive on last week's episode. Go back and listen to that if you haven't. But other things that have come out from that State of Play, a huge one, and the reason why Lee was playing with his Darth Vader figure, is Vader Immortal, originally an Oculus exclusive, is now coming to PlayStation VR, which means I can play with it. August 25th, only a couple of weeks away. To my knowledge, it's a kind of a prequel to the main trilogy where you get to really be Vader and kind of get into his boots, if you will, as he becomes the Dark Lord of the Sith and really embraces his hatred and his anger.
I'm going to run our audience. If you're listening to this, we'll describe it as we're doing it, but I'm going to watch the audience is listening. I'm going to run everybody through this game virtually right now. So Ray's camera is actually the VR. Ray, put on your VR headset, your fake VR headset real quick. There it is. So here comes the first act of the game. Ready? Hello there. It is me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Right? Right. Okay, now he's fighting Obi-Wan. You are the chosen one!
I hate you!
Right, see? Ray gets it. Now here comes another. The negotiator! Right? Except it's listed, General Grievous. He's shorter than I expected. Jedi scum! Right? Then there's this one, which is actually Anakin. It's an Anakin figure without the Vader armor.
Fighting himself,
right?
Basically.
If you're not with me, you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Right, quick side quest. Okay. He's gone. And then out of nowhere, for the first time ever in Star Wars, this guy shows up.
The Hulk. For those you can't see, Secret of
shows up. And I'm going to show you how this would play out, because the Hulk's a pretty powerful being. Now, who's fighting the Hulk? Lord Vader, right?
Yes.
You ready? You stay. That's the Hulk, right? You don't know the power of the dark side. I'm going to hit you.
I was going to say, I think Vader wins this fight because because the Hulk can hold his breath for a long time, so I don't even think the Force choke would do much, but it's just holding him, and then with his lightsaber, he'd be able to cut him up.
Yeah, it's not close. I mean, the Hulk could probably Vader could probably beat most of, if not all, the Avengers.
I think so, yeah.
Right, and then the end of the game, of course, is, out of this box you must get me. Right? That's a regular Yoda, not Baby Yoda. Yes. But that's the game. Oh, I almost forgot. And then somehow there's a Lego Shmi Skywalker, but that's her. She's on a land speeder. She's still alive. So
well,
alternate universe.
Expect in a couple of weeks a full report on the actual game after I.
Why? That was a game?
It was a game. It was a fun game. I think everybody at home had a lot of fun playing that with us. I'm not gonna lie.
Look. Vader, yeah, I hope so. Make sure you comment below on that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you just have those? You just have those action figures around your room? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I found most of these in a box when I was cleaning out my garage last week, and I was gonna give them to my son, but I was like, not before they make an appearance on this podcast, which is now. I didn't realize it, but 20 years later, the purpose that I bought these for. I realized it was for this moment.
Geeks who like sports canon. There you go.
Right, but I love that they're getting back into Vader, and
yes,
to kind of transition a little bit more into Vader here, if that's okay. One of the things that Ray and I spoke about this before we even started the podcast. One of the things that was done poorly with the prequels, was that they took the bad guy that is Vader, the biggest, baddest, worst villain in the history of cinema, and they softened him up a bit with Anakin. Now, what's funny about that is, time kind of heals all wounds. I don't believe with that in real life, but I do believe it in comic books and movies. All right. And with Rogue One, Vader came back at his full might and evilness.
Yeah.
Which was great. And then we saw other things, fan films of them recreating the scene with him and Obi-Wan where he's dark and he's evil and he's bad. And again, I always say this, especially to our younger listeners, that maybe didn't know a time where there was no Anakin Skywalker in film, right? It was only Vader. This guy was scary when we were kids, all right? Yeah. There's no internet. He was scary. He was evil. And it made the revelation that he was Anakin Skywalker actually all that more better. And now they're really tapping back in creatively to the dark side. But this is where it comes full circle, all right? Where Anakin, this guy right here, Hayden Christensen, to no fault of his own, kind of softened Vader. They're now starting to revisit in Vader's mind how he would have maybe interacted with a younger version of himself or the sins of his past. Yeah. And one of the cool ways they're about to do this, in addition to Vader Immortal, is a new comic book series that's called Vader, in which Darth Vader now has to go to Naboo, which is the planet of his beloved wife, Padme Amidala. And he is knowingly, in comic books, always avoided going to Naboo as Darth Vader. Like, that's it's too painful for him. He doesn't want to go there. Which says a lot because he thrives on pain. But he has to actually go visit her grave. And in the preview for the comic, they don't really tell you why he's there, but he has to go to Padme's grave, and he's there, and all of her handmaidens are there from the films, all the people that look like her. And they're telling Vader, who they obviously don't know is Anakin, you're not desecrating her grave. And, like, that's kind of where the teaser ends. And I'm really excited about this because that is, like, a major point of Anakin becoming Darth Vader. And if comics have always been able to tap into this way better than film.
Yes.
And even TV shows, okay? But I've read a lot of Darth Vader canon, okay, whether it's books or comics. And when you dive into the hatred he has for himself, he becomes an incredibly dynamic character. In a bad way. I mean, it's fun to read about him. I told this on previous podcasts how his suit purposely causes him pain so that he stays on edge all the time, and how he could have upgraded that at any time and he chose not to, all the way to he purposely lets villains really hurt him. I mean, it's really dark, right? But Padme is his greatest failure outside of abandoning his children. Sure. Yeah. But
well, he remember he didn't know he had his children survive.
Right. He didn't. Know. He didn't
wink,
know,
wink.
Right? Yeah, I can't wait till they dive into that. But I'm looking forward to it because, in some of the more recent books, there's kind of Padme's voice in his head, and there is an Anakin voice in his head that from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope fades through that 20-year time period. Or 18-year time period. But the Anakin is very much alive within Vader for a long time.
Yeah, and it's Luke who gives the light to come for him to come back. Yeah.
Right. So for those of you listening, again, if you think about this in a 45-year period, I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's a pretty good story, and the films have never been able to do that. But I just wanted to bring it up because I'm really excited about this comic. I will give a spoiler review on it if you guys don't want to read it. But I just love that we're doing it. I think it's in the process already. So I think there's a prequel coming out already. So Vader's a comic that's been around already, but I think it's coming out this week.
Nice.
All right. So by the time you're hearing this, it's probably out. Okay.
Cool.
And you can just look it up, Vader comic or Vader Goes to Naboo. Sounds like a political movie. Vader goes to Naboo. Mr. Skywalker goes to Naboo.
I was gonna say,
right. Said it, but the closing remark on it, Ray. But before, if you want to comment on it, is, the Phantom Menace came out 21 years ago, which is really weird in a lot of ways. But it came out 21 years ago, and they started making it like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
All right, but over 20 years, it's amazing to see how we've kind of come full circle to this, and that the prequels now kind of have that little bit of a gloss or glow on them. Like, they're not as critical as they are. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the last 3 movies in 20 years. But, now the prequels don't look so bad all of a sudden. And I always want to mention this. I was watching Phantom Menace with my son the other day. We watched the pod racing scene.
Yeah.
That scene has completely stood up to the test of time.
Yeah.
And it's only now that we're really realizing, and this did not get the credit it deserved back then, how far ahead of time that scene specifically, I mean, the whole movie really, but man, LucasArts was way ahead of everybody else. I mean, you can watch that scene now, and it does not faze you at all. Like,
I mean, you can criticize George Lucas as much as you want as a writer or a director, but founding LucasArts, Industrial Light and Magic, Skywalker Sound, everything that they do in terms of special effects and in terms of visual and audio effects in movies, they have been at the forefront for decades. And I've always been, for me in the original trilogy, and I always get a lot of guff for this, is I've always defended Episode 1 for several reasons. I'm like, look, maybe as a whole it's not the best, but you take individual scenes, the lightsaber battle with Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, the space battle with the Naboo starfighters, the pod racing scene. Yes, there's a couple of sappy scenes and a couple of sappy lines, and look, no one's going to apologize for Jar Jar. But
you're a slave? I'm a person, and my name is Anakin.
Yes, it's like, but there was a lot of great moments in that movie.
Yes.
That
it was a good movie.
Yes,
I never had a problem with that movie. In fact, when you look back at all 3 of them now, even Attack of the Clones is not horrendous. And I think the biggest problem people have with Attack of the Clones is it probably shouldn't have been a movie. Right, they should have probably just fast forwarded it a little bit, but if you look at it, it's actually not that bad. So feel free to disagree with us. Obviously, comment below. We love having Star Wars conversations on this channel. I just wanted to again acknowledge that they're starting to figure things out in the Star Wars universe, and they're not relying on film or cinema to do it, which is probably the right path right now. We also know the Mandalorian is going to be dropping in early October.
October 7th. Yes, you got an official date, October 7th.
I have a feeling we will have a trailer for that within the next 14 days, or at least a teaser.
I would imagine. I mean, I'd imagine so, and I imagine that even though New York Comic Con hasn't been officially canceled, I'm sure they're going to do an online thing, and I'd imagine a lot of news and a lot of surprises will probably happen because that would be literally a handful of days before the dropping of the first episode. So and we could start to see a huge push now in the next couple of months.
This wasn't in the rundown, but I do want to briefly discuss it, Ray, and I think you'll see where I'm going here. There is going to be a lot riding on this season, and let me tell everybody how high the stakes are, because the first season was great. You had a lot of non-Star Wars fans love that show. It was a really classic Western in so many ways, okay? But at the end of the show, in the last scene, and if you haven't seen it, this is your spoiler alert, when Moff Gideon comes out with the black saber, that was Jon Favreau saying, I am opening up the expanded universe.
Yeah.
And I'm diving in head first. It's a big deal because no on film, I'm not talking animated, no live action Star Wars film has ever dove into the cartoons or the comics or anything like that.
The lore,
right? The lore. That artifact of the black lightsaber has a tremendous amount of history. We know they're bringing in Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
Right? We know they're bringing in clone troopers. So there's a lot riding because and I'm gonna say this right now. He absolutely will pull it off because he's Jon Favreau. But if they don't, it could be a major problem, right?
Yeah.
So
it could set Star Wars back for years. Honestly.
Really could.
Yeah.
This is a real gutsy move from what I'm seeing, and they're really opening it up. And again, if they're opening up to Ahsoka and they're opening it up to Rex, I mean, look, you might see Luke at some point or in some fashion. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in this show, but I give them credit because they're diving way deeper than I think people realize. And again, the black saber is absolutely a Mandalorian artifact.
For those who don't know, it's the artifact that whoever holds the black saber basically rules the Mandalorians.
Yeah, Bruce Mandalore.
Exactly. Yeah. So could you imagine the conflict if Gideon reveals to the Mandalorian that he's the holder of the black saber? What the Mandalorian will have to do if he orders the Mandalorian to turn over Baby Yoda, the Mandalorian has to comply or risk exile at the least. And so right there, you're setting up such a huge conflict that could just to play out over a second season. Oh, it's gonna be fantastic.
Well, and again,
can't wait.
like they set us up more than we realize. This is the way. This is the way. This is the way.
Yes.
He can't go against his religion.
Yeah.
So and then there's also this big overarching storyline of Baby Yoda, which is amazing to begin with. But I've kept saying, and I don't know the answer to this, but what if Baby Yoda turns bad? All right, like we don't know, because Baby Yoda, again, people always like, well, where is he in the time of Rey Skywalker and all this stuff? I said, well, he's still a baby if you think about it. He's probably really young still, so they're setting something up, big time. But like, can you imagine if he turns bad or if he's conflicted or whatever? So really creative juices within the Star Wars universe, all the way from Vader Immortal, which is, you're gonna love that, Ray, from everything that I've heard about it, because I've asked people about it.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. I can't wait. So
yeah, all the way to where the Mandalorian is going and the comics.
Yeah,
Star Wars. Let's just say the tropical storm is spinning, and I need this to become a non-deadly Cat 5 hurricane.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to pummel. And then my last note, real quick, as you said. We talked about LucasArts and Skywalker Sound. If you want to know how prolific of a place they have in cinema, you can go watch any MCU movie, any of them. Pick any one. Go 6 hours and 32 minutes into the credits, okay, or towards the end. Yeah. And you'll see that they are responsible for almost all of the visual and
they're
audio
responsible
stuff
for a lot of movies in general. Before Disney acquired them, they were responsible for a lot of movies in general and special effects. Right. But now, obviously, they're Disney's ace in the hole. I mean, acquiring all those studios was. I mean, that's why Disney's such a powerhouse now, in one of the true superpower in cinema. Yes.
And now I have to transition again, because we had news last week, Ray. That actually, we didn't talk about this either before the show. I'm sorry to throw this on you.
My outline's been thrown out the window.
It's all right. It's what I do. I'm here to make your life a living hell, Ray, and I'm doing it. A judge ruled this week. We forgot about this, but we have to talk about it. A judge ruled this week that Disney and other things, that the theater model is breaking down hard. Okay, and that the door. Let me just put it this way: the door is now open completely for Disney to buy and make their own theaters. Okay. Yeah. The union, let's just say, of theaters is dying and gone, and so everything we're predicting about Disney buying theaters, I mean, it's all open now to happen. And when it does happen, I absolutely am going to gloat and be like, I called it. Everybody, I called it.
We literally have 69 episodes of podcasts to prove this.
Yeah, and like I said, most people know me as a humble guy with that stuff. I'm not going to be humble with that one. I'm going to totally say that I called it. And I'm going to go back. We're going to get an intern to go back to all probably 75 episodes at that point and pull it out. We're going to have like a nice 12-minute montage. Travis, I hope you're listening, because it's going to be you. Sorry. But, we're going to make it happen. Caitlin, we would never do that to you, our producer. Yeah. She's too valuable to do that. And Travis is very valuable too. But I just like putting work on him. So,
but anyway. Explain for the folks what exactly the judges ruled on this week. What exactly
Ray,
they said.
I'm glad you asked. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to actually read it. Do you want to do something in the meantime while I'm doing that?
So we'll get
perform Oklahoma. Ray, go for it.
I also want to mention, while we're still talking about Vader and Star Wars, and we'll get to the theaters, but I also want to mention the video games have been a great way to also expand him. Again, a spoiler alert, it's been out for almost a year now, but Fallen Order, where basically the boss battle is you just running from Vader, just shows how... That's how Vader should be done. Like, your character just gets promoted from Padawan to Jedi Knight by the time he faces Vader, and he is no match for him. So all he can do is run, as Vader literally is destroying everything around him, and then holds back an ocean with the Force. Literally, if you have not played this game, folks. I mean, it's just that's the way Vader should be, and that's the way it's great to see that he's getting there, and I cannot wait to play as him in virtual reality. Again, that's August 25th. That is dropping on PlayStation VR. If you already played it on Oculus, like Lee said, you already know what we're talking about. But for PlayStation VR owners like myself, this is two great VR hits in a row, by the way. Yeah. Iron Man was amazing last month. Now I get to be Vader. This is a great time to be a geek.
Yeah, well, and also with VR, it shows you that they really should be banking on the existing properties, because people want to be characters they know right now. Yes. And all the VR games that you've played that you're not somebody you know, your review is always, it's okay. That's it. But when you know it and there's a storyline, it makes it a little bit different. Yeah. But yeah, and Ray, you said this on a podcast before, and this is what I said about Vader before. His full might. You don't fight Vader, you run. Yeah. Because you're not going to win. There are very few characters in the history of science fiction that are more powerful than Darth Vader. Yep. I've heard people say Voldemort. Dude could not take over a high school. Yeah. He's not more. It's not even close. right? Yeah. I don't even like that they put him in the same conversation. Yes, they were both beaten by kids, okay, but a little bit different reasons. Okay, I got the article up here. I wanted to make sure I got this right. So basically, a federal judge on Friday granted the U.S. government's request to immediately end Paramount decrees, a set of antitrust rules from the late 1940s and early 1950s that ended Hollywood's monopoly on producing, distributing, and exhibiting movies. So the judge said the Department of Justice offered a reasonable and persuasive explanation for why terminating the consent decree would serve the public interest in free and unfettered competition, which is exactly what we've been talking about with Disney coming in. Yeah. And it said this is why we've been talking about. Last November, the Justice Department moved to end the decree enacted in the Supreme Court of 1948, said Hollywood's biggest studios had illegally monopolized the movie distribution and theater industries. The chickens have come home to roost. The federal court has said no more. AMC, all the movie theaters, who I have spent lots of money, lots of great moments. Yes. You bitched too much during this pandemic. You did not innovate, and now the law is going to be on the side of the film and not of the theater. If you had played your cards right, this would not have happened.
Yep. Come together with a compromise with the studio instead of
innovate.
You were trying to fight you had no position of power. For once, Disney and Warner Brothers, they had the high ground.
Right.
What were you doing?
Hockey. You're playing hockey without a stick. You're swinging at pitches without a bat.
Yep.
And then bitching about why you're not
brought
hitting
a knife to a gunfight.
Right. So I'm going to call it today. Today's date is August 9th, 2020. I'm calling it right now. Disney will start making their own theaters in 2021. Will be announced sometime later this year. After Mulan comes out and sells 1 million copies on stream.
Yeah, after they make $1 billion on Mulan for 30 bucks a pop. Yeah.
Right. So there it is. I mean, this is actually what I wrote on our page. There it is. Yeah. There it is. Okay. That's the boom. The blast has been shot. The gun is fired. The race is on. Look for Disney. Look for Warner Brothers. Look for all of them to start making their own thing. I can't wait to go to the Peacock Theater, the HBO Theater, whatever you want to call it.
No, exactly. Yeah. Right? No, I think that this is. It's going to be interesting. It's an exciting time to be a geek. Like I said, it's going to be fun to see what happens. And again, and I've talked about this before on the show. The one theater that Disney does own, which is the one connected to the Jimmy Kimmel studio here in LA, it's a different experience, guys, going to the movies. It is. Sure, it's still the regular seats and your popcorn and soda. But they do an extra little song and dance beforehand, and it just brightens the experience in a way you don't get at the theater right now. And it's going to be something to see what happens as the El Capitan. I was blanking on the theater. The El Capitan.
It's okay.
They will. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as that only continues to expand. And because we've already seen it, movie theaters closing up shop, so that property is going to be cheap. That property is going to be ready for business, and it's going to be easy for any of these studios to come in and snatch them up and to show their films.
I'm going to tell you all. I'm a business owner myself. There's several rules that I have, but one of the main rules, one of the pillars of our success is we do not settle. Yep. We do not sit. We are always innovating. We are always looking for the next thing. We are always looking to make our stuff better. As soon as we sit down, we will get destroyed. That is the nature of the beast. If you can't keep up, don't run the race, right?
That's it.
If you're not with me, you're my enemy. Only a Sith is an absolutes.
Well, I guess we're a couple of Siths then.
That's fine. I'm a Dark Jedi, but a good, not a wimpy one, like a cool one. Like, you want to be a fan.
Yeah, I'm probably more a Dark Jedi, but I might be more Sith.
No, you're Sith. It's totally a Sith.
Straight
but
Sith,
you get turned. You get turned at the end.
I have my light moments, but I'm mostly Sith.
Ray, I feel the good in you. All right, listen, that was a tremendously long.
That was a great segment, though.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and folks, we got a lot more shows still. We got more video games coming. Getting back on track with video games, a couple other announcements from the Sony State of Play that kicked this all off. Control's second DLC, my game of the year last year, a lot of people's game of the year last year. Second major DLC that ties it together with the Alan Wake universe. The Alan Wake expansion dropping August 27th, 2 days after Vader Immortal. It is not going to be a Sony exclusive this time, though. It is going to be all systems at the same time, thankfully, because I have it on Xbox. But super excited for that DLC. Get back to that universe, and also Jessie, the main character of the game, one of the most best strong female protagonists that has been introduced in games in a long time. She is terrific. So great to play more with her. And also one I was a little disappointed by, a little bit of a head scratcher, but this is looking like one of those classic early generation launch titles that looks pretty but might not have a lot of substance. It looks like an Assassin's Creed clone, but I'm curious to see what they do with it. It's called Hood, Outlaws and Legends. It's a Robin Hood game. It looks like it could be interesting, obviously, in more medieval England. Obviously, they've done that already before with a lot of Assassin's Creed games, medieval times and things like that. But I think it would be interesting. I'm curious to see what this game ends up being. But it looks very pretty on PS5. That's a PS5 exclusive, I believe, coming out early 2021, early in the generation. So a lot of stuff from Sony this week, which was interesting. A lot of fun. Any thoughts, Lee, on Hood or Control?
What's funny about Hood is it's amazing to me how two things seem to come around every 15 years in a circle. One of them is werewolves and vampires, and the other one is Robin Hood. And it seems like they're always around at the opposite times. But I can remember this all the way back to Kevin Costner in Prince of Thieves, the American accent in Robin Hood for some reason. But like, this sounds great. Look, I don't have a problem with clone games. This is something actually for the listener. You should comment on this. Let us know what you think about. Do you have a problem with clone games as long as the story is rich? So what I'm saying is, like, if they make a Robin Hood Assassin's Creed, let's just call it that. Yeah. There's going to be people who go, it's just Assassin's Creed, but with Robin Hood. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I don't have a problem if the story is good. Like now if the story sucks, then no, that's not cool. But like, yeah, you're telling me it's the Assassin's Creed of Robin Hood? Yeah, I'm in. I love that story. I mean, who doesn't love Robin Hood? And how historically accurate can you make it? Because like, what's funny, they tried to make a historically accurate Robin Hood film with Russell Crowe at one point.
Yeah, it wasn't
good. Like nobody watched it, right? But apparently it was actually quite accurate to what happened. But yeah, I have no problem with that. That's what I'm saying. So, but let us know. Like, do you have a problem with games like that? Keeping in mind that you got to think about this one because most Star Wars games are clones of other games, and for
sure. There's only 36 archetypes of a script. Yeah. There's only so many video games. Even that where I'm playing now, Ghost of Tsushima, which I love. But I've told people this many times during my streams. It's Assassin's Creed in feudal Japan,
right? Exactly.
With a great story, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Which is why I enjoy playing it because I love Assassin's Creed and I love assassinating people. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yes, you did. Assassin's Creed. I love doing horrendous metaphors. Yeah. Assassin's Creed is to gaming what Kleenex is to tissues. You see? It's an Assassin's Creed type game. We don't say it's a God of War game. You say it's an Assassin's Creed game. Keep in mind, Assassin's Creed's a copy of every game before it came out. Remember, there was a game called Assassin 20 years ago.
Assassin's Creed, as people forget, Assassin's Creed was a failed Prince of Persia game.
Yes.
The original Assassin's Creed was originally a Prince of Persia game, and it wasn't working, and so they tweaked it, they changed the story, they added other elements to it. But it was originally supposed to be the Prince of Persia 5 or whatever it was supposed to be.
After Sands of Time.
Right. It was supposed to be something like that, and they realized that it wasn't working, and they turned it. So remember, everything comes out of something, right?
Just perfect it.
Right, exactly.
Remember, there were smartphones before iPhone. Just saying.
Exactly. So good stuff from Sony. Also, good stuff from Nintendo this week. Not in terms of things that they're releasing. Unfortunately, it's a pretty. They have announced a couple of remakes. Pikmin 3 from the Wii U is now coming to the Switch, and a few other things are being remade from the Wii U to come to the Switch. But and a lot of ports are doing very well for Nintendo. Nintendo announced. And this is very impressive, folks, because they are in the middle of a systems shortage because of the global pandemic. They haven't been able to manufacture as many as they would like. But the Switch, exactly. The Switch has crossed a major milestone: 61 million units worldwide sold. It's now one of Nintendo's best-selling systems of all time. And part of it is also, again, it's probably spurred by the pandemic partially, including the shortage. 22 million copies of Animal Crossing have been sold, making it already the fourth best-selling Switch game. I believe it's the fourth best. Mario Kart still being the best Switch game, but right up there at 20. I think it was 21.99 million, or right around 22. And considering it's only been out for 4 months, that's unheard of. Absolutely unheard of.
Yeah, it's look, the practicality of the Switch is really off the charts. I mean, and again, always give it to Nintendo to innovate and come up with a game like Animal Crossing or release a game like Animal Crossing that's perfect for the system. You know, it's funny. I had a friend over last night who had never seen the Switch. Yes, we were wearing masks for all of you wondering. And I showed it to him and how it worked because he has a son the same age as my son, and I was showing it to him, and it was funny because he was sold right away. But the funny thing was he's just like, well, I'm going to get this early for me, so I can play like the NES stuff and the Super NES stuff. But like, look, it just give it to Nintendo for. They weren't on their knees. I wouldn't say they were, like dying.
Oh,
but,
Nintendo has such a stockpile of funds from the success of previous systems.
Yeah,
that they can handle the flop that was the Wii U.
They were in a little bit of a hiatus. Let's just they had struck out, and they came up to bat again, and they hit a grand slam. All right,
exactly.
So and it's not the first time they've done that, right?
Yeah.
But now it's expansion. Now it's okay. Start getting the big titles on this system so we can get them. And then, I know they're talking about, or they're going to be releasing a version of this that's only handheld, which is, again, it's a pretty brilliant.
It's already out, actually, the Switch Lite, and that is selling just as well as the regular Switches.
Yeah, it's a brilliant move, okay? Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what they do next, okay? Because, like I said, I don't really want to buy a new Switch yet, or an upgraded version of it. Can you start getting some of these major titles on the Nintendo?
Yeah.
We'll see. So, and they already are, to be fair. Like, again, getting some of the sports games was a huge deal,
Sports
obviously.
games, Wolfenstein, Raid.
Right.
There's a lot of good games that have Doom. There's a lot of big games. And I'm not talking about, like, old Doom. I'm talking about, like, the new Doom, like the powerhouse Doom games. Like, they have been getting some good ones. And so, if you're a Switch owner and you're also looking for those adult third-party games, there's enough. There's not obviously you're not gonna have your exclusives like Halo or Uncharted for obviously for Microsoft and Sony, but like you've got a lot there to that's being offered to you if you're trying to get on the Switch train. If
they get those major releases, it puts them into the console wars that aren't really wars anymore, but it puts them right into that mix again, which is they're not there just yet. Right? Like a lot of people have a Nintendo and a PlayStation.
There's
and
still
Xbox.
The second system,
and that's they can jump back in if they want. Maybe they don't want to be in that space. We'll find out. But yeah, listen, congratulations to Nintendo on just again coming from the ashes again to hit a grand slam.
Yes. Speaking of guys who constantly strike out, Warner Brothers. Now I should preface this. I know a little bit more about this game than I think most do. But it was announced this week that Rocksteady has finally revealed. God, I've been sitting on this for almost 2 years. That's how long we've known about this. They've announced they are making a Suicide Squad game. You're gonna get to play as Harley Quinn, King Shark, Deadshot. It's gonna be a game where you get to choose a variety of different characters. I haven't seen it. It might actually be similar to what they're doing with the Avengers game over at Square Enix, where it's like you can kind of pick and choose and have a variety of different battles. Personally, I remember when we heard about this internally, this disappointment from basically everybody on my team, because let's be honest, folks, DC, stop trying to make Suicide Squad happen. The only thing I can think of is that now with James Gunn taking over the film, the new film, which the fact you already have to reboot after one film shows you how bad the Suicide Squad was. And it's honestly, it's not a very compelling comic book either. It's never really. There have been a couple of storylines. Don't get me wrong, but for the most part, give me Batman and the Outsiders. Give me. If you want a different like off the cuff team, give me that. Don't give me Suicide Squad. And also with Marvel, Thunderbolts, which is basically the same concept, much better, much more interesting. Suicide Squad traditionally not a fan of. And again, it's just another vehicle for Harley Quinn, which I get. You're trying to jam her down our throats. I get it for sure. Obviously, bisexual or lesbian, female, anti-hero, all for it. Love Harley Quinn. I've always been a huge Harley Quinn fan. But there is a point where you oversaturate the market sometimes. And I think that they run the risk of doing that with another vehicle that will probably coincide with the movie in some way. And I think it's a waste of Rocksteady's talents. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. Rocksteady was working on a brand new, unheard of IP, and then Warner Brothers came in, undermined them, and they're like, no, you have to work on something for DC because we need another DC thing because we're struggling everywhere else. And it's just like, honestly, and I've said this before, Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment is on the chopping block in terms of being sold. Rocksteady is part of that umbrella, along with NetherRealm, who obviously makes Mortal Kombat. I hope that they get sold to somebody who knows what they're doing, because I'm tired of the hierarchy, the people at Warner Brothers who don't know a thing about video games coming in and telling video game people what they should make, how they should make it, and why they should make it. Because this is just going to be another example of a project that Rocksteady, people who I love, they make amazing games. They are good people, hardworking people who are being forced to make something that'll probably still be good, but not their full potential because they got forced to make something by a bunch of morons at DC who don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I'm going to go two ways with this. One is just on the game. The only way a Suicide Squad game works, and this is going to be a common theme with everything we talk about, is the story. The story has to be really good. Really, really good. And I'm going to say this too. Don't have a lot of faith they're going to find a good story, because they haven't found a good story for Suicide Squad yet. These are characters that cannot be in the same space at the same time. They take up all the oxygen in the room. That's why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want a team up of these villains. We want to see the villains on their own. Like, that's why villain team ups don't typically work. They're powerful on their own or as a duo. Yeah. All right. But and that's just my opinion. When it comes to studios, this is all I'm going to say, and this should get people listening excited. Look, we're about 5 to 10 years away from the initial gaming generation, the ones that really dove in. I'm not talking about the arcade generation. God bless all of you, by the way. No problem with that. But the home console generation, which, Ray, you and I are at the forefront of. We're approaching, we're in our mid-30s, for those of you listening. Mm-hmm. All right? We are not far off from being in the positions of power. All right? What's happening is the transition of power here of people that did not play games growing up, that have a lot of money, and they're in the CEO roles or in these governing roles that do not understand gaming. They do not understand the gaming audience. They do not understand the story of gaming, and they're making decisions based off of the dollar, which is not wrong, but they're not listening. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I don't think we're far off from another golden age of gaming where the people that grew up in this community are going to be governing this community, and there'll be new mistakes to be made. And there'll be things that go wrong in that too, but it's going to be better than no. Stop working what you're working on and work on what I want you to work on. Again, that will always happen in some form, but not like this. Or as we bring it back to the 90s, not like these, not like these. Yeah, that's a Matrix reference from 1999. Yeah, 21 years ago. Yeah,
and I should also clarify. I actually haven't seen the game. I was part of some of these. It was talked about. It was talked about constantly at DC.
It's all about story, right? I'm not wrong with that. It's all about the story. If it's a bad story, a game's gonna flop.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
No. I mean, so I hope it's good. I hope it is good. I hope they pull it off. You know what I mean? But like when I heard that it was announced, I just kind of heard of like, I remember when this was told to my team when I was at DC about how disappointed we were. Because again, like you say, it's just not, they're not characters that typically resonate with a lot of the fans.
Who asked for it?
No one.
Who asked for it?
No one.
That's the key here.
Okay? You know what people are asking for? They're asking for a Superman game. That's what they're asking for.
Right. Which is, to be fair, very hard to make. But yes, they can do it now.
For sure. Very difficult. Not saying it's an easy task.
Yeah.
But listen, again, this is something where you got to listen to your fan base. And again, this is why things like Birds of Prey flopped in the theaters. It's like, stop trying to force things onto people that they aren't asking for, that they don't want. And that's kind of, again, it goes back to my original point. Stop trying to make things happen when your audience is telling you what they'll give you, what they'll do to give you their money. They'll tell you what they want. And obviously, at some point, you can't listen to everything the fans say. But I mean, you have to have your own creative control and whatnot. But like, you've got to have your hand on the pulse of what's working and what's not. And I just think this is another example of DC just not knowing what they're doing. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll be eating crow when we see it at DC FanDome in a couple of weeks. But
it's coming up. They're charging up for that.
Yeah, but I just I don't know. To me, it's not what I want.
Speaking of FanDome, I keep hearing that they are starting to do reshoots for Justice League. So initially, it was reported that there was not going to be any reshoots and that Zack Snyder had to work with whom they have. But I've been hearing multiple sources online now that they are actually planning to do reshoots and to do it right, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know why, again, DC, so no reshoots, no money into this. Well, as most things, they put out that they're doing this maybe they did listen to the fans a little bit. Now they're like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe we should get Cavill back in here to take his mustache off. And,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. We've all seen a few things in the last week or two of, obviously, the upgraded Steppenwolf to look exactly like he's supposed to look, like he did in Batman vs. Superman, to keep that congruent.
Yeah.
Looks much meaner. We also saw yesterday the first tease of Black Adam with The Rock. Who's going to be at FanDome. Obviously, there will probably be a Black Adam trailer or something.
Yeah.
Or Shazam 2. I don't know how they're going to do it.
I don't know either. But we're probably gonna get a lot of stuff. Wonder Woman 84. We're gonna probably there's gonna be FanDome's got they supposedly have a lot of announcements lined up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I hope they do well. I really mean that.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're not look, folks. Let me clarify. I'm not rooting against DC. I want the Suicide Squad game to be good. It's just that, again, I don't think it will be, and I don't even think it will be. It's not what we wanted.
Let's just metaphor it again, right? What you are is you're the fan of a team that sucks right now, and you desperately want them to win.
Yeah, you want the ownership to step up and do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, you're gonna let them hear it while they're losing.
Right.
But I'm really excited for Black Adam, mainly because Dwayne Johnson doesn't attach his name to anything he's not going to win at.
That's true.
So, the script must be good. And again, obviously, Black Adam and Shazam have very clear. I mean, it's the same world. So, we'll see what happens if that's its own movie. Which I don't think it's going to be called Shazam 2. I think it's going to be called Black Adam. Yeah. And Shazam will be in it because that's the way The Rock. There's no way The Rock's like, yeah, I want Zach Levy to have the main stage on my movie. Yeah. Like, that's not how it works with The Rock. No. So,
well, I mean, isn't it supposed to be more like a prequel, kind of like more like ancient Egypt or whatever? Like
maybe. I know that Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam will be much larger than Shazam.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. I hope it is a prequel. I mean, I fully expect Shazam to be in it in some form. It might not be, Levi's Shazam. It might be the original Shazam, or
they might
Shazam.
hint at us, or even you'll have the Wizard there, obviously.
Yeah. There's a lot they could do, but Black Adam, for those of you listening and maybe not follow DC, really one of the most, if not the most underrated character probably in DC history. Very, very powerful.
Yeah, very dynamic villain as well. Like they really explored him a lot more in the late '90s and 2000s, and really kind of got into his background as why he's so protective of his nation of Kahndaq and all that other stuff, and the fictional nation, and it just which kind of like an ancient Egypt if you're not familiar. And it just he's a great character, and the fact that they have The Rock playing him, I think, is just it's a win. It's a huge win. So
will Black Adam fight the Scorpion King? We'll find out.
That's the thing I keep thinking. Part of the reason why I'm like, did they cast The Rock just because they're really big Scorpion King fans?
Yeah, can you imagine that? Like, we're gonna make it right. We're gonna fix that animation.
Oh man. But so there's that. Last thing on the video game front. Yoshinoro Ono. Sometimes folks just know him as Ono. One of the legends, basically been with Capcom for almost 30 years, and been part of Street Fighter for almost 25. Came on board with Street Fighter 3. Is basically been the face of the franchise. Announced a couple of days ago that he is leaving Capcom. That I don't know if he's retiring, but he is at least leaving Capcom after almost 30 years. And it's sad to see him go. He's a character in video games, and a lot of when there's not a lot of characters in video game development. Obviously, his love of Blanca is well known. He's obviously been a huge proponent and a huge driving force of Street Fighter in esports, and getting that element of gaming furthering that in Evo and other tournaments, and also of course the Capcom Tour, which is their Street Fighter specific international esport. So he's gonna be missed, and best of luck to him as he moves on to hopefully bigger and better things. But that was a big deal that kind of shook the gaming world when that was announced. Actually, I think earlier today. So. So good on him, and best of luck in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, anytime legends move on, we love to shout them out because they're not going to get that love anywhere else.
Yeah, pretty much. So, speaking of, one person leaves, another one enters, or returns, I should say. This was an interesting story that came out today. Christopher Eccleston, the ninth Doctor, Doctor Who. It's announced and it is official. Has not played the Doctor since 2005. Even refused to come back for a lot of the specials where they had other Doctors. I mean, even Tom Baker has come back at different points. I think it was the fourth Doctor all the way a long time ago. But Eccleston, it was announced today that he will join next year. He will come back and do the audio dramas.
It's Doctor Who theme for all your
Oh,
home.
there it is. There it is. Yeah, the audio dramas that they've been doing, and he will come back and do I think a dozen episodes with them as they're called the Ninth Doctor Adventures, and it'll be specific adventures that the Doctor had while he was in the Eccleston form, and it's good on him. And of course, there's a lot of stories that came out that he was dealing with. Part of the reason why he only did one season was not only was there a lot of internal conflict with the creative team for Doctor Who, but he was also doing a lot of personal demons at the time, a lot of depression and stuff. And for him to finally come back and want to revisit this character, who he's had nothing but respect for. He has nothing but respect for the Doctor, a huge part of British pop culture and pop culture really in general. Great to see him returning this, even if it is just audio dramas. And yeah, huge. If you're a Whovian, this is a big deal to you, I think.
Yeah, Doctor Who, one of the greatest geek properties in the history of mankind. And Eccleston never gets the full credit he deserves, at least not in America, for revamping that property, because he brought it back to the mainstream a while ago now.
Yeah, 15 years ago now, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when it happened. Again, very gutsy to do one season for multiple reasons, as Ray said. But, I mean, he could have stayed in that role. People really loved his Doctor. Now, the Doctor Who creators, the Doctor Who producers got extremely fortunate that David Tennant was so good.
Yes.
And actually stayed for 5 seasons after Eccleston, which was a record, by the way. Like, the Doctors usually stay 2 to 3 seasons before that they regenerate.
Right.
And then after that, Matt Smith was a really good Doctor too.
Yeah.
And then in my opinion, they had Peter Capaldi, and I can't remember the name of the person who's playing it now. She's really good.
I can't think of her either.
And I'm embarrassed that I don't know that. I'm going to look it up to give the respect.
No, it's important. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of stopped watching Doctor Who after Matt Smith, so I'm not up to date with the Capaldi stuff.
No, that's my fault. That's my fault for not having it.
No, it's all good. I stopped after Smith, but like you said,
Jodie Whittaker. Excuse me.
Eccleston brought such gravitas. I mean, still the scene where they go back to the World War II era, and he explains to
the Billy Piper.
Piper. Thank you. That he. Not everyone lives, right?
Yeah.
There's not always a happy ending in his adventures, and it's very true. And it kind of shows a darker side to the Doctor that you really hadn't seen before.
Right.
And then when he exclaims that everyone lives at the end, when he separates those gas masks from the children. And again, folks, you haven't watched the episode. You
must
go back and watch. You have to go
simply
back and watch
must
them
to
understand what I'm talking about. But it's a really powerful moment, and it also shows Eccleston's a very acclaimed actor. He was also Malekith, of course, in Thor: The Dark World, which again, he didn't get the credit.
You've seen him. You've seen him in a million things.
Oh yeah, exactly. And he often doesn't get the credit he deserves, because he's often sometimes in a lot of prosthetics and a lot of makeup and a lot of things you don't get to. But he transforms himself whenever he takes on a role. And yeah, really, like Lee said, really reinvigorated the Doctor, who had really had a downturn for almost really like a decade, if not more, in pop culture.
Well, yeah, there was a film in the late 80s, I believe, or I'm sorry, 1996, The Eighth Doctor. Paul McGinn played the Eighth Doctor in a film. Okay. Right. And then Eccleston took over, and I'm looking at now, 2005. David Tennant did 2005, 2010, which is a record. In fact, Tennant wanted to stay. They were like, we have to, like, or else you're gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
And then Tennant's always been part of the franchise. Matt Smith, 3 years, 10 to 13. Peter Capaldi, 14 to 17. Jodie Whittaker, 2018 to present. And what's cool is now with Eccleston coming back, it will now mean that every one of the former Doctors has had in some form interacted with other Doctors. So again, just in case you don't know, the basic premise behind Doctor Who is he can travel through space and time. So he can be anywhere in the universe at any time in history.
Yes.
It opens up an incredible world of writing.
Yeah.
Where literally anything is possible. And the writers of this show have always done, for the most part, an unbelievable job of telling stories about his home planet of Gallifrey. I mean, it's a really cool world to get into.
And interconnecting everything, right? Like his villains, and making sure things make sense, where if you do something with this, it could affect other times and change things. Like this, I mean, obviously, classic recurring villains like the Daleks and the Cybermen.
The Master.
Yes, the Master, of course, which is his great arch nemesis, the Joker to his Batman. Right. And the idea and the fact that they explain why different actors continue to play this throughout history with his regeneration. Whenever he dies, he comes back.
He comes back, so the show can go on forever. There's also cool things like with David Tennant. He was the Doctor that regrets, right? Because the Doctor's been around for long time, and it's like he has this past. And then the next Doctor, Matt Smith, was the Doctor who forgets. And it was just, they kept doing these amazing things about the different personalities. And the doctors can interact with former doctors. Now, the caveat that they always write in is if a doctor meets another doctor. So, for example, David Tennant met Matt Smith in an episode at one point.
Yes.
And William Hurt was in that. It was called Day of the Doctor. It was an unbelievable 50th
Yes, because William Hurt plays the War Doctor.
The War Doctor, right? Yeah. So it's always known that when doctors interact, they immediately forget their interaction as soon as they leave. It's a time paradox that obviously they can interact, but once they leave, they forget it. So they never know that they've been with other doctors. But Eccleston has always stayed away after his first time. He never wanted to revamp it. Even in the 50th anniversary, they offered him the ability to do it. He said no. Yeah. So it's a huge step for him to say, yeah, you know what, I want to dive back in. And they'll all tell you this is the cool statement. Is I think Tennant's the one who says this, because people will say when they're interviewing me, you're not the doctor anymore. He goes, no, once you're a doctor, you're always a doctor. Yeah. That's true. All right. Again, there was only supposed to be 12 doctors because he can only regenerate 12 times. There's 13s. I'm not going to give away the why that is. You can go watch the 50th anniversary special and then the ensuing episodes to find out why there's 13 doctors now. Yeah. But really great series, and I'm really happy to hear he's back because he was really strong in that season, and you would not have Doctor Who today without him. So it's great that he's back.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely agreed. So welcome back, Christopher. The Whovians out there are thrilled. Myself included.
I do want to say too, like he's been around forever. He's going to be in Danger Mouse here. I'm just looking at his theater work. It's just, he's been in every movie. He's been in a lot of geek properties too. That you look him up on IMDb. And, you've seen him in something. You don't even realize it. It's one of those. Yeah. Malekith, again, super underrated villain, by the way. Great.
Yeah, well, I think that part of the problem was you couldn't understand him half the time because he was speaking in Dark Elvish.
Exactly. They didn't use him to his best.
No, I completely agree. Right. But anyway, speaking of using folks to the best of their abilities, two of Marvel's powerhouses for forever have been Spider-Man and Wolverine. And this is a fun thing going on in comics right now. There's an event called Empire. The Krees and the Skrulls, typically two warring alien factions, have joined forces and now are attacking Earth. They realize a lot of their problems all stem actually from Earth.
We could just kill the humans.
Yeah. So the Avengers and the Fantastic Four are off in space fighting as part of this war. There's other factions and other things going on. And so who's going to stay behind and help Earth deal with the problems? Not to mention there's also a splinter of the alien factions that are warring that have an advanced scout trip. So they're also defending the Earth from this advanced scout from the Kree-Skrull alliance. So, obviously, Sue Richards and Reed Richards, Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic, have children. Franklin Richards, who is an incredible telepath and also has teleportation abilities, at least in the last time I read him. And Valeria, their daughter, who I think is super strength and indestructible and also can do force projection like their mom. So the two children, obviously very much growing up in the Fantastic Four, around the Fantastic Four, are basically the 5th and 6th members of the Fantastic Four, but you need two others. So they call on, who do they call on? Well, obviously, and look, folks, if you're familiar with Marvel Comics, they've had a lot of different people join the Fantastic Four before. She-Hulk has been a member of the Fantastic Four before. There's been a lot of others, but two of the big, I think Beast was a part of the Fantastic Four at some point.
Right.
But the two of the most prominent ones, Spider-Man and Wolverine. And let me tell you, go to the Geeks Who Like Sports Facebook group. I put the cover of the first issue
they look great
on the group. It is two of the best costumes I've ever seen Spider-Man and Wolverine wear, in my opinion. I think they look great. Thrilled that they're going to be helping out the kids. I think it's going to be a fun dynamic. I hope it's going to be. I think it's going to be well written. I look forward to it. Again, haven't been reading a lot. I haven't read a lot of comics in a long time, but just this cover excites me and makes me want to see what happens.
Yeah, and finally thinking outside the box a little bit in the comic world, which is great, the stories. And we've talked about comics a lot more recently than we have in previous episodes because they're finally figuring it out. Like, man, we got to write some good stuff here. Yeah. What's cool is this. I wonder if this is also the start. And we haven't talked about this a lot. We've echoed it, but not talked about it. But the Fantastic Four should be an Avengers-level team. And we don't talk about that enough. Now, in the MCU, they're going to do something. All right, and Ray and I both believe, I believe we talked about this, that the Fantastic Four and mutants like X-Men are somehow going to be linked in terms of how they originate in the MCU.
Cosmic rays and stuff.
Exactly, right? But the Fantastic Four have the potential to really be much more powerful in lore than they are. Now, obviously, adding Wolverine and Spider-Man is Marvel very much being like, hey, look over here, okay? Look at this again, okay? Because, again, for the modern geek, it's very much these films that were... I mean, I'm not talking about the most recent reboot, which was horrendous, but we're talking about the Fox reboot. But we're talking about the films with, that were, 15 years ago now.
Yeah, with Michael Chiklis and Jessica Alba.
They weren't horrible. They're just pre-MCU, and that's what they were, right? So, but like we don't have great memories of this group now. But if you go back before those movies, and you read the comics, it's Doctor Doom. We've said this before, and I'm starting to wonder. Doctor Doom might be the logical next Thanos. All right, because people don't remember he is one of the most, if not the. And this has been spoken about many times. Biggest villains in the Marvel universe. If you think Thanos is bad, and again, nothing wrong if you got into Marvel just from the movies. We don't judge anybody here. If you're in geekdom, you're in geekdom now, okay? But Doctor Doom is a Magneto level. He is a Thanos level. Magneto's another one that we should talk about because he's a major villain, right? He is, a Apocalypse level. I mean, there's a lot of these bad guys you might have heard of. Doctor Doom might be the next logical character that they build to, and I would love personally to see Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men really become part of the MCU. And I trust Marvel or Disney to do this right. Now, they expanded this universe to 22 films, and I know if you're just a film fan, you're like, wow, they really expanded that universe, and I'm like, man, they're not even close to expanding the universe. I mean, they're just scratching the surface. But again, we know this. And if you have watched Spider-Man Far From Home, and spoiler if you haven't seen it, but after the credits, Cage is in space. All right? We know it. All right? We know it. So it's like, what's going on? Something bigger is about to happen there. And I want to thank COVID for helping us build so much anticipation by making us wait as long as humanly possible for this next film.
Movie. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. And speaking of Doctor Doom again, he's so powerful because he's one of the few villains who has done who has science, magic, time travel,
everything.
He has everything at his disposal, right? I think the next one they did actually mention. They said supposedly they actually want to do Kang the Conqueror first, which actually would be fast. And this would be fascinating because Kang the Conqueror, for those of you who don't know, it specializes in time travel. What if Kang the Conqueror goes back in time and he's the one who triggers the event that creates the mutant gene? That then this way it changes time enough so that's when mutants start popping up randomly in the current MCU. It would be such a masterstroke for him to do that ripple. Because you have the Time Stone. You've introduced time travel into the universe through Doctor Strange, also introducing magic. You're also introducing this with the 10 Rings, supposedly, in Shang-Chi, introducing the new Mandarin. Folks, they are on the verge. They are on the verge, ladies and gentlemen, of blowing this wide open.
And like I said, this is for Ray right now. But this is the other thing too. Is I just held the Hulk up. By the way, a minute I said Cage, I meant to say Fury. I apologize.
I know.
For some reason I said Nick Cage in my head. It's Nick Fury, obviously. All right, but the other thing too is that the Eternals, which no one is talking about, by the way. If you look at how Marvel has done things with lesser known properties, obviously the most obvious being the Guardians of the Galaxy. They used that movie to introduce something much bigger. The Eternals are way bigger than Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
All right. So they're building something that we're excited about. I can't wait to see what it is. But just going back to the Fantastic Four, I really wonder if we're pivoting now towards re-legitimizing. Not that it ever lost its legitimacy, but just revamping the Fantastic Four to be the next kind of big thing. All right. Because it can be done if it's done right.
Yes.
So, and again, who better than Wolverine and Spider-Man? By the way, if you've never watched Wolverine and Spider-Man interact, it's hilarious.
Yes.
Because it's just obviously, I mean, it's very similar to Deadpool, but
they're an odd couple.
Yeah. It's this kid who makes jokes, and Wolverine just doesn't want to deal with it. It's just
exactly. It's
great.
Funny because it's when Spider-Man takes on the straight man role when he's with Deadpool.
Yeah.
And obviously Wolverine and Deadpool have that same relationship. Spider-Man, not as crazy as Deadpool, but it's that same dynamic. It's a lot of fun, especially when written well. So yeah, there's a lot of, and but obviously they both, unlike Wolverine, I think Wolverine legitimately hates Deadpool. Wolverine and Spider-Man have a very good. Wolverine actually really likes Spider-Man. He just doesn't want to admit it. It's kind of one of those like,
it's a love story.
It's like big brother, kid brother kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that should be really good. Speaking of brothers,
That's a good transition, right?
Yeah, younger brother, older brother kind of thing. Our last big geek story that came out this week, and still in the comics realm. For those of you who don't know, Paul Dini has gone back to writing comics, specifically those set in the Batman, the animated universe, the DC animated universe, and he's expanding on those stories because those, for many of us, those characters were so beloved, and Paul obviously had more stories to write. Another thing that people don't know about what DC does, and this is a true internal edict, they don't like cartoons to go more than 3 or 4 seasons because they feel that children age out of them, so they reboot them constantly in the hopes of getting more children to sell more action figures. Little known fact, that's true. That's why Static Shock was only 4 seasons. That's why Batman the Animated Series was only 3 to 4 seasons. Justice League, the list goes on and on and on and on. That's what DC does. But all of us have held on to it for so long, much to the chagrin of the DC executives who don't know what the hell they're doing. They've gone back and they have greenlit this, and Paul Dini's telling more stories. So, to get to the point, something that a lot of us always suspected but never really knew for sure was that there actually was a second Robin in the DC animated universe. And for those of you who watch the cartoon religiously, obviously you have Dick Grayson. You had that amazing 2-parter, Robin's Reckoning, I believe it was, where it was tells his origin story, which we all knew, but it was told so well in animated form. And then you had Tim Drake, who historically is the third Robin. But what they did was they thought, a lot of people were like, oh, well, he just merged the second Robin's origin story with Tim Drake to kind of get the 2 Robins out of the way, because they didn't want to touch on the death of Jason Todd just a couple years earlier in comics, because they thought that even for kids that might have been too dark a story, even for a dark cartoon like Batman Animated Series. But Paul Dini has actually gone on record several times, including on DC Daily, saying he didn't actually know the origin story of the new Jason Todd post Crisis on Infinite Earths, that it was just a coincidence that he made it so similar. Yeah. So what ends up happening is that he's like, there's actually a Jason Todd in this universe, and we are finally getting the story of that Jason Todd in these comics now. And you find out that the Jason Todd in the comics, similarly, a bit of a street urchin, you find out that Jason Todd had a brother who wore a red hood, kind of also a homage to the Joker, which we all know what the Joker does to Jason Todd in the end. Crowbar.
Look it up if you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is Crowbar. Just look it up. Yeah. But basically, there's a street gang that his older brother's a part of, and he always wore a red hoodie, and they called him the Red Hood because he was the lookout. And it was the most dangerous position in the street gang because if the cops ever were looking for people, the Red Hood stood out. The brother gets killed and a heist goes wrong, a shootout with the cops, all this other stuff. So in revenge, Jason Todd wears a red hoodie similar to his brother's and basically tries to fight and beat the snot. And actually, he's a great fighter. He actually stands on his own with all the street gang. Meanwhile, Batman is nearby because he's also tracking this street gang, because people forget that Batman doesn't just handle supervillains, he also handles thugs and fights crime, right?
He's a detective. People forget
right, exactly. That. And it's basically Batman and this young Jason Todd who basically just puts this gang down, and that's when he kind of like immediately realizes there's potential in this kid, takes him under his wing. We also they haven't gotten into it yet, but they have hinted already at the beginning of this comic arc, because the arc is not done, that obviously Jason his story does not end well. We're assuming it's going to end with the Joker. We haven't been told that yet, but it's been hinted at. And the reason why is, of course, they're introducing the Red Hood. Yeah. And it also makes sense why he would call himself the Red Hood here in a more personal way, not just the Joker in the DC animated universe, because in the DC animated universe, although they've hinted that the Joker wore a red hood, many people in DC in general have worn the Red Hood and had that moniker, so it's not unheard of that multiple people could have that moniker, but they make it personal to Jason. And I think that's a really interesting way of doing things, and again shows why Paul Dini is one of the best comic book and cartoon writers ever, period. And I think this is a great story, and so if you're not checking that out, you should, because it's probably the only thing that's worth reading right now from DC.
Yeah, one of the underestimated, I guess, storylines in Batman is we all agree Batman's villains are always the best. The villains in Batman are what make Batman great. It's not necessarily Batman, right? Batman's a very black and white character. Mm-hmm. But then there's the three sons. There's the three Robins, right? And each one of them represents a different thing. And I've always found this pretty amazing as a writer myself is you have Dick Grayson, which is Batman is a failed father, and he goes off on his own for good. Right. Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing, but he fights for good in his own way. Right. Very much like most of us rebel from our parents and move on in life. But like that was essentially a happy ending, you know, in terms of like they acknowledge each other
and they've reconciled since then and everything.
Yeah, many times. Right.
Yeah,
so that's
the prodigal son, if you would, is Dick.
Jason Todd represents what happens when you're a bad father and it goes bad. Right.
Tragedy,
So again, Batman, who again, I won't give any spoilers, but the idea is that Jason Todd, in many iterations, and we also talked about this before the show, Ray, is that he's also this is spoiler alert. Spoiler if you haven't played Arkham Knight, he is the Arkham Knight. So in his storylines, wherever he is, he always becomes the anti-Batman against Batman, the Robin that goes bad. All right, and then obviously the third Robin is what happens when you get it right. Third time's the charm, I guess, with that one. But you know, I mean, and they've never evolved Drake's story beyond that. Like he's just still Robin, right?
Yeah,
now,
no, he's the perfect son who always tries to follow perfectly in Batman's footsteps.
Right.
Sometimes too well. And then of course, I mean, obviously he's had other sidekicks since then. Obviously, also Batgirl's a different story. Damien, his biological son with Talia. And also there's Duke, aka the Signal, who wears a bright, who for those who don't know, wears a bright yellow bat suit because he fights crime during the day. Yeah,
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So the other thing too is, and he has another son on the way, or another child, we should say, on the way too, with Catwoman.
Yeah,
with Selena Kyle. But what's cool about the Robins is they do interact at times. They do get together. It's always fun to watch Tim Drake and Dick Grayson, Drake and Grayson talk to each other because that's a big brother little brother relationship too.
Yeah, that's a true that's another Batman Robin relationship, like classic Batman Robin in a way.
Right, and it's really cool because there's conflict, but you throw Todd into that, and it makes this trifecta. And I really hope that that's kind of where they go with it too, because. Again, we're at a time period now where you said it probably was too dark to introduce him in the time period of the cartoon that you were talking about. Like, if you really think about it, I'm not sure as a kid that's something I would have wanted to.
No, as a 7-year-old to see Robin get killed by the Joker?
Right,
what?
yeah. I'm not sure as a parent I'd even want my kid to see that right now. Yeah. But I think we've matured a bit from there, and there's viewers now that would watch that. So, Todd is a really great archetype, for lack of a better word. I mean, again, you have the three Robins. What happens when it goes right? What happens when it goes wrong? And what happens when it goes sideways? And you have all three of those with all the Robins.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing, and again, happy that Paul Dini's writing comics again, and I'm excited to see where this arc goes.
Holy rusted metal Batman!
Yeah.
What? It's metal. It's rusty, and it's got a lot of holes in it.
Yes. Oh God! I actually didn't. I know a lot of people make fun of that one, but I like the little tip of the hat to the '66 series there. But
I like the tip. They just could have done that. Why were they not just walking sideways up the building? I mean, there's a lot of things they could have done.
I know. They could have done.
I mean, who wrote that line?
I'm sure Schumacher wrote that line.
You couldn't have come up with a better Robin line. By the way, we're talking about Batman Forever. For those of you who don't know it, you can look it up. Just look up "Holy Rusted Metal Batman" on Google.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know if it was Schumacher, but we're getting but
chicks dig the car. Are you hungry, sir? I'll get drive-through. These are the lines we had to deal with in the late 90s.
Yeah,
people.
And that wasn't just a commercial either. That was like actually, although I'm pretty sure that was specifically put in there for commercials.
Oh, it was. McDonald's had a huge thing with that.
I mean, and Schumacher, rest in peace. He even said this and how much he hated how much DC. And again, I know we're ragging on DC again. Got their fingers into the last two movies.
Yeah.
And even that's why he even called the last one toyetic. It's like we had all these different suits because they wanted to sell more action figures.
Well, I will tell you this though, real quick, not to segue out of this too far, but I do want to say this: the toys and the keepsakes you would get from a McDonald's back in the mid '90s. Were way better than today. Now, Happy Meal toys today are way better. I only know that because my kid's alive and I get to get Happy Meals. So Happy Meal toys today are like way better than when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. But like I remember when Batman Forever came out, they had these like collective mugs, like glass mugs.
Yes, the glass mugs.
They were awesome. All right, and I remember like we used to be able to go get VHS tapes at McDonald's. Like I remember they'd have things with baseball. Like it was just a nostalgia moment here for us. But they don't do stuff like that anymore. Mainly because it's Amazon exists.
Yeah.
All right, but like you should look up those glass mugs. I think that was from Batman Forever.
Forever. It was Forever.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
Forever.
Batman and Robin did. Yeah, and they were great. I mean, little keepsakes, and I bet you they're worth a little something nowadays.
They are. If you have the whole set, they are actually. And I know people have paid a
Yeah.
pretty penny to get them back into their bat collection. I think mine's somewhere in Jersey, but
And they would come out. They would come out for 1 week, and if you didn't get them
Yes.
that week, that was it. I remember that.
I remember my
Yeah.
grandmother ate more McDonald's than she ever ate in her entire life for me to go get those mugs for me.
We'd walk in. Do you have Two-Face? No. Damn.
Yeah.
I'll take a Sprite Happy Meal #1 Big Mac,
Yes.
please. Thank you.
Oh goodness, those were the days. Anyway, so that does it for our geek section.
Well, sorry, real quick, just to revamp to close this out because I said I would. The Vader going all the way back. The Vader comic where he goes to Naboo drops August 12th. That is this week. But you
Nice.
asked me, and I'm very thorough with things like this.
There
so
you go.
August
Yes,
12th is when that
this
comes
Wednesday
out.
makes perfect sense. That's when
Pre-order
comic
now
books
on
drop.
StarWars.com.
Oh goodness! But speaking of things dropping this week, the puck will drop on Tuesday, I believe, when the playoffs will finally start. The official playoffs, the qualifying round, as we are talking, is wrapping up as we are talking. Most of the matchups are locked in.
Yeah, we know all the Eastern matchups right now, minus the winner of Columbus-Toronto, which is about to start in a couple hours. So when you watch this, you'll know where that's going to be.
But it's been a thrilling first round. Lee, I give credit
Phenomenal.
where it's due. Your Flyers are now the #1 seed. You beat all of the other seeds. That's a great shirt. That is a great shirt. I love that shirt. I'm jealous that my teams don't have a shirt like
For
that.
those of you listening, actually, our guest reviewer, Casey Owasco, who's a good friend of mine, went out of his way to purchase this. He always looks for geek sports things for me. He even said, I was going to do this, but he's like, you got to wear that on the episode. I was like, why would I not wear this on the episode? But for those of you at home, that are listening to the show, he bought me a shirt. It's the Flyers insignia, except there are X-Wings flying across it, and the circle on the P is the Death Star, and it says, stay on target, because you can't say that line any other way, unfortunately. But
Yes.
I'm going to show it again for the camera, and but Ray will keep talking. But thank you, Casey Owasco, for this shirt. He would have bought you one, Ray, but you never would wear it.
No, I hate the Flyers. But yeah, congrats on your team. Obviously beating everybody else in the round robin round. I believe Boston's down to 4 now.
They did. Went 1 to 4, and 4 went to 1. So
Yeah,
Boston was
so,
number
yeah,
1. They're the
complete
4th seed, and the
flip-flop.
Flyers are the #1 seed.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it'll be
look-
interesting to see what happens there. As you guys take on Montreal, who upset Pittsburgh in the first round.
Right.
So the first time ever that the 1 seed will take on the 24 seed in the NHL, or the 12 seed really in the playoffs.
I'll comment on this real quick. So first off, really glad the Flyers took the first seed. I think it's phenomenal that the way they played. But and I'll say this to all the Flyers fans out there too: we got to calm down here. Doesn't mean anything. It's a great way to start the playoffs. You can't cool off here, right? You got to keep going. We are a long way from the Stanley Cup. The playoffs really are just starting now. Okay, if you really think about it.
Yeah, the true playoffs.
They look great. Yeah, they look great, but it is a long road to win the Cup. I hear them counting out Boston already. It's not a smart move, okay?
No, you beat them once.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just that they haven't won a game, and that's kind of where
Right.
the attitude is. But like we've seen this in every sports league, a team has like a crashing end to the season, and then they come in, they sweep, and they win everything. So, very happy with the Flyers. As a Flyers fan, long way to go. Cannot get overly confident just yet, although it looks really good. With that said, for the first time ever. And this is in both the East and the West. The #1 seed will take on the 12 seed in each conference. The Flyers taking on Montreal, the 12 seed in the East, but they're the 24th. They were the last team to make it into this playoff round. And people have been asking me, like, I don't know, do you want Montreal? Do you want the team? I mean, they beat the Penguins, and, here's my answer. Yes. Yes, I want the 24 seed in the playoffs. I don't want to overlook them. That's very important. The Flyers should be taking them on like they're a #1 seed, right? And Alain Vigneault, the coach, will do that. Ray, you know him. He was a coach of the Rangers. Vancouver Canucks fans know this. I mean, you take them very seriously. But if you told me when the playoffs start you have to take on one of the teams in the playoffs, I'm picking Montreal then, and I'm picking Montreal now. Because the truth is this. In terms of depth, in terms of everything except for goaltending, the Flyers have the upper hand. Okay? And goaltending, in my opinion, is matched. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
Carey Price it looks like
yes.
Carey Price of old right now.
Yeah, well, he's not hurt, and he hasn't played a whole season. He's rested, right? So, yes, I want the 24 seed. I absolutely believe that's the best chance to win and get out of the first round. With that said, don't want to take them lightly, okay? I'll tell you who I wouldn't want to play right now. Would not want to play Boston right now, okay? I wouldn't want to play a team that lost all these games, all right? You know what I'm trying to say? You got to think about this. I wouldn't want to play the Islanders right now.
Yeah.
All right. There's a lot of teams in here that are really more dangerous. Right. I wouldn't want to play Tampa right now. Okay.
No.
So this is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I'm not going to make any predictions here today. Excuse me. All right. All I will tell you is this: is that in a few hours, and again, you'll know this by the time you listen to this episode, Columbus will be taking on Toronto to get that last spot to take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And part of me wants Toronto to win just because Toronto kind of deserves a chance. But I really kind of am leaning now towards Columbus because I want to see what happens when the Columbus Blue Jackets, the team that swept the #1 President Trophy team in the league last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning, have to rematch them in round 1 because I think Tampa will wipe the floor with them after what they did to them last year.
Yes.
And I'm interested to see that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm rooting against Toronto. I mean, Toronto versus Tampa would be great as well. It's going to be a very interesting matchup to see what happens here. And again, the Flyers versus Montreal. I believe it's Washington. Boston will play the Islanders, I believe. Let's look this up real quick because we know the Eastern matchups.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think it's Washington, Carolina, and Boston, the Islanders. Yeah.
Right. And we do not have a schedule yet either because they haven't released it.
Yeah, no, they're waiting until after the last game. And tomorrow, by the way, also we're recording this on Sunday, is also the redraft.
Yes.
Of the first round of the first pick, and I'm telling you right now, if the Pens get that #1 overall pick, I am quitting hockey. I am done.
So I'm sorry. The Boston will play the Hurricanes.
It's Boston Hurricane. That should be a good series, actually.
Yes, and Washington will play the Islanders. Flyers will play Montreal, and then Lightning will play the winner of Columbus and Toronto.
Those should all be really good series. Great. Actually, I mean, I think honestly, I think the Flyers should handle Montreal pretty easily.
We should. But look, we don't deserve to win if we don't. Like that's how I'm looking at it. If we can't beat Montreal, we don't deserve to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I Carey Price could steal a game for sure, but like I think that I think this will probably be a 5, maybe 6 game series, but I doubt it. I doubt. If I was a betting man, I'd bet on 5.
Right. And then in the West, St. Louis is going to take on Dallas. Okay. Another surprise. The Vegas Golden Knights move up to the #1 seed.
Yep.
So we're going to see what happens there. Again, I don't believe
because they play Chicago.
They do, yeah. So it's going to be very
Edmonton, yeah.
Yeah, in Edmonton, I heard this funny joke the other day. You never go full Edmonton. You never go full Edmonton. All right, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But look, let's just say this: tremendous organization, tremendous qualification round, tremendous job by the NHL and the NHLPA to get this completely right. Absolutely 0 cases of COVID-19 in the bubble. Yep. Keeping in mind, too, and we've been saying this so far, as the tournament moves on, it gets safer and safer and safer because less and less teams are there.
Yep.
So I think the NHL has nailed this, and they have definitely put their flag in the ground. And I'm going to say this to ESPN and NBC and all the sporting broadcasters: if you do not give that league the credit that they deserve, okay, you're just pandering at this point. Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with the NBA, doing a tremendous job. We're going to talk about that in a quick second too. But what a phenomenal 2 weeks of hockey! I cannot wait to see where this goes.
Yeah. No, it should be interesting. Like you said, that the bottom seeds won out. Chicago looking rested, and I think that really helped a lot of the guys like Kane and Taves and even Crawford and Net. And it makes them dangerous. Yeah, and I think that, and honestly, you don't. Vegas looks good. Like, they look determined as well, but I think Vegas versus Chicago is going to be an amazing 7-game series.
Yeah.
And I think it could, and I think it could be a long series too. I think it could be a 6 or 7 game.
Well, let's
series.
hope so. I mean, let's hope we get. I mean, actually, I believe how many Game 5s have we had in this series? I know there's one tonight.
No, this is the only one.
Yeah,
this is the
every
there was one sweep, which was the Hurricanes against the Rangers. Everything else was a 4-game series.
Yeah, incredible. So it's really setting up here to be something special. And as predicted, actually, we were talking, and this is a little bit of a tease, but we have an interview coming this week in our leaderboard edition with Finn McConnell, who said that one of these teams is going to get into the next round, and that you're going to have a 24 seed go deep. Probably, hopefully not on the East, but we'll see how it goes here. But look, no one's going to say this, and this is what we talked about with integrity in sports. Even with Montreal winning, even with Chicago winning, I don't think anyone at this point is looking at the playoffs like, well, if they win the whole thing, man, this is a crock up, SH blank T.
Yeah.
All right. If they win, they win. I mean, it's like they've earned it.
Yeah.
So can't say that about baseball. I can't say that about baseball right now. And
we'll
football is going to totally screw this up.
Yeah. We'll get to baseball in a minute for sure. But like you mentioned earlier, basketball is also going on now.
Yep.
We got a lot going on with a lot of the standings there. They have another week before their playoffs start. We've talked about this before, folks. I really think the NBA made a mistake by trying to finish out their regular season, even if it is with less teams that were already eliminated that weren't into it. Because it's tough because there's so much going on, games that matter and so much other stuff. And so again, like the hockey playoffs are on. There's so much on the line. I think the NBA kind of undermined themselves here by kind of giving hockey that 2-week head start, even though they started 2 days earlier. But that said, I mean, this is the other sad thing, is that we've already locked in the Eastern Conference teams for the playoffs. We know who they're going to be. It's all they're deciding now is seeding with these games. The Bucks have the number 1 seed overall. That is locked in. Raptors is 2 currently, followed by Celtics 3. Raptors and Celtics could flip-flop. Then it's 4 Heat, 5 Pacers, 6 76ers. Those 3 teams could all move around. And then finally, 7 is the Nets, 8 is the Orlando Magic, who, of course, are playing in Orlando, so very convenient for them. Those 2 teams can flip. But those are the 8 teams in the East. That is locked. Honestly, looking at this, I'm super impressed that the Raptors, even after losing Kawhi Leonard, are this good. I think they'll handle whoever they play, whether it's the Nets or Magic. Same thing with the Bucks. I mean, with basketball, it's a lot easier to favor the top-ranked seed. These guys have been doing it for all year long. I think Heat versus Pacers would be a very great. I would actually take the Pacers over the Heat, but that's a 4 or 5. You could really go either way, flip a coin. But I think the Bucks. I think it's their time, right? Giannis obviously leading that team. I know your Sixers could surprise some people, Lee. They'll have, right now they'll have a tough first round matchup against the Celtics.
Yeah, I'm not too high on the way they've been playing. They're gonna have to really step up their game if they want to bring it up. I do want to say over in the West, there is going to be one of those play-in series that we talked about when they were organizing this to take on the Lakers, which is funny because they're basically playing in to lose in the first round. You know, but there's going to be, and again, it's very complicated, but there's a play-in series for the 8th seed, basically, which is going to happen. Yeah,
if the 8 and 9 seed are within I think 4 games of each other, then there's a 2-game play-in series, the August 15th and 16th. So the playoffs technically could start next weekend.
They did say they gave a date. So the playoffs begin Monday, August 17th. So that will be the first day of the playoffs in the NBA.
The actual playoffs, but the play-in games, if there's a play-in series, I think would be the 15th.
Oh, yes. It'll be soon. And the idea is that, like, again, the reason they did this is because they said it's a little bit more than the NHL. I think the NHL had less than 10% of their schedule to go. Yeah. The NBA had about 14%, 15%.
The certain teams had as much as like 17 games left to play. So
and because not every team is in this regular season finale, that's why it's, if they're close, they're going to do it, not based on points, because like the way the schedules are, if you had you had 4 teams you could have beat really easily, you just don't know. So I'm not against it. It's just confusing, and like I said, it might want to have been just one of those things of maybe extend it to 24 teams and start the playoffs in a qualification round. I mean, I don't know if there's an example of that working anywhere, but I'm assuming that it could have worked. But look, again, it's these leagues don't really talk to each other when they were doing this. It's pretty obvious. They all came up with their own idea. And look, what's cool is this too. It's a hindsight statement that I'm making. And the NBA is not doing it wrong. They're just doing it different. I think the NHL has just shown the best possible way to do it. So when we have another pandemic, in the near future, hopefully not, we know what to do. If it stops exactly at the same time it stopped now, because these pandemics really do try and choose the best possible time to show up. It's congratulations to the NBA and the NHL for really doing a good job getting this organized.
Yeah, no, for sure, definitely. And just real quick, the Western Conference, Lakers, number 1 seed there, that is locked. Clippers, right now, number 2. Nuggets, number 3. Those 2 could flip-flop. Rockets 4, Thunder 5, Jazz 6, again, and Mavericks 7. And 4 through 7 could all flip-flop before this ends. And right now, the play-in series would be the Grizzlies versus the Trailblazers. And how that would work is the Trailblazers would have to beat the Grizzlies twice. If the Grizzlies win just one of those games, the Grizzlies are the 8 seed. So that's
very weird. Yeah,
it's a very weird. Yeah, it's a 2-game series, they call it. So that's an interesting thing in basketball.
I didn't do this in the NHL, but I will do this. I fully expect the Lakers to win the NBA championship this year. Everyone is going to be rooting for them except for whoever their opponent is. Right. All right, but I think collectively, most of even if you're a Laker hater, you kind of want to see them win this year, just because of what happened with Kobe and But just look, LeBron's on that team. I mean, this is not. There's plenty of research to support my theory that the Lakers will win the 2020 COVID championships.
Yes, it's I agree with you. I think the Lakers are the team to beat. I think honestly in basketball, it's hard not to pick the 1 seeds.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be Lakers Bucks. I think it'll be a good series. I'll call it right now: Lakers Bucks, Lakers in 6. That's my prediction.
You've heard me talk on this show a lot when I get into sports and my coaching side of things. That you need a strong why. It's not just the will to win. You need a strong why. I don't know if any team has a stronger why right now than the Lakers. I might be wrong. I mean, sometimes things happen internally. You never know. But I don't know a team with a stronger why than the Los Angeles Lakers right now. And it's one of the first times in my life I really wouldn't mind if they won. It wouldn't bother me. I think that would really. There are a lot of people that are Lakers fans. Keeping this in perspective, this has been a very painful year for them. And with everything going on, that would probably make a lot of people who feel bad feel pretty good. And I'm not against situations like that.
Yep, and because of COVID, this might be a year when LA wins a championship. They might not burn half of it down.
There you go. Also speaking of LA, before we move on here, I do want to say this. Today is the anniversary of Wayne Gretzky, because I have to hear about it every year. Wayne Gretzky was traded from Edmonton to the LA Lakers today. I believe. I'm sorry. Yeah, he definitely didn't play for the Lakers.
Sorry.
He definitely didn't play for the Lakers. Actually, no, you're buying me time to find the exact date. He played for the Lakers too. You just don't remember, Ray. It was the one game. It was 32 years ago today. Wow. I believe. Wayne Gretzky was traded by the Oilers to the Kings.
And really put LA hockey on the map.
Put hockey on the map. A lot of people don't realize, and I always want to acknowledge this because today literally is the anniversary. Because Wayne Gretzky, especially in America, never gets enough credit for this. He turned down probably 4 more cups easily in Edmonton to go to L.A. because he knew, if he goes to L.A., player salaries will go up. He did it for his fellow teammates. He did it for the fellow players in the league.
He did it for the game.
He had to be that, And he also went to L.A. to grow the game in the United States. It's also one of the main reasons he went to New York at one point.
Yep.
So this man sacrificed winning a lot of cups to grow the game.
Yeah.
Clearly worked.
that Edmonton team would have been unstoppable.
Yeah, well, they were. They were. In fact, they were so good without him. They won in 1990. Think about that.
They still won without him. Yeah, exactly.
But everybody projected they would have won 8 or 9 cups in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky, also one of the Pro Stars. Something we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yes.
Wayne Gretzky, 32 years ago today, made the move, the trade. Promised Messa wouldn't cry. Famous words. I don't know how often we get to announce 32 years ago today, but arrived in LA.
Yeah, a huge, huge deal indeed. Moving on now to.
Before we move on, we have a unique opportunity on this podcast today.
Okay.
I have received word that there is a Pokemon Go raid for Deoxys. Deoxys, how do you say his name?
Yeah, Deoxys.
Okay. And we are going to be invited to this raid. And I told Caitlin, our producer, who is frantically texting me right now that we're recording this episode, right? And I said, if you get it, maybe we'll do it on the air, right? So I want you to know that now, that we may be getting an invite here in a few minutes. And I thought it might be funny to do a Pokemon Go raid on the air with live play-by-play provided by Ray Carcillo, which will be like this, come on, like that. I'm assuming you have one already.
Yes, I have a Deoxys. Yes, so they've added shiny Deoxys to the game.
So there's a reason. There's a reason for you to try this.
To potentially try it for sure.
All right, but I'm opening this on Pokemon Go. The other brilliance of how I introduce this is if this is crap, we just delete it from the episode. But hopefully you're all listening to this still. Yeah. If she invites us, we have some time.
The thing is, can she invite 2 people?
Yes, you can invite as many people as you want.
Really?
I'm sorry, you can invite up to 5.
Okay.
Up to 5 people.
All right. Well, I have the app open. I will look for that. If you get it first, let me know.
I will.
But yeah, so moving on now to while we're waiting for Caitlin's potential invite for Deoxys. I hope she has a group, by the way. Deoxys is not easy.
She has a group. She has 5 people with her.
She has, okay.
I thought this through.
I was going to say, I don't know if the 3 of us could handle it on our own.
There's going to be a bunch of people. Like I said, I produced the producer to produce this production.
That's a lot of producing.
That's what I do.
You're the producers.
I'm a production producer.
Is it springtime? But anyway, so moving on to baseball, typically what you play in the spring, but instead, of course, playing now in the summer. it's still a mess. It's still a mess. The
Big
Cardinals haven't played a game in a week and a half. They've only played 5 games all year. The Marlins and Orioles have caught up on almost all of their games. Big story, the Marlins are in first place of the East and actually look not bad. By the way, congratulations to Don Mattingly, who is now with 282 wins, the winningest manager in Marlin history.
Jeez, that's horrible.
That is terrible. Yeah, because typically what they do is they hire somebody, they win a World Series, and then they fire them for some reason. But, of course, Jeter, now the owner, has a soft spot for Mattingly. Also, obviously, Mattingly was a bench coach for the last few years that Jeter played before Mattingly became head coach of the Dodgers. And then, of course, went on to the Marlins. Honestly, the Marlins aren't bad. They have some decent young pitching. They have some decent fielders. They're overachieving a bit right now. I believe at 9-2 is their record as it stands at the moment. But
they had a lot of good rest in there, Ray.
That's also true. Meanwhile, my Yankees, who had to play 7 games in 5 days, including 2 doubleheaders, have dropped 5 of 6 now. Still in first place, but going 9-2 looks a lot better than 10-6, which is what they are now. Or 10-7, or 9. The Yankees were 8-1, and now they're 10-6. Yeah, so that's unfortunate for me. But fortunately, we have the Orioles and the Rays and the Red Sox, and they all still suck. So we'll probably be okay. Other fun stories: if the season ended today, the White Sox would make the playoffs. Another team with a lot of young talent. Because again, baseball threw out all rules and all tradition this year, and we're like, we're gonna have a 16-team playoff like everyone else. So. And Caitlin did just invite us, by the way.
I was invited too. All right, so I'm gonna. Why we do this? Go ahead, so I can see it, just so those of you at home can look up. This is what we're rating for on Pokemon Go. If you're not playing this game, what's wrong with you? Yeah. I'm using my remote raid pass to jump in.
As am I, jumping in with a team of mostly dark, rock, and ghost types. Deoxys is a psychic. Dark does very well against psychic types for those of you who don't know. But yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Right now, the Astros with a losing record would also make the playoffs. But they're on the cusp of not being in there, and I would love nothing more. I will say this. This whole season would have been worth it if the Astros don't make the playoffs, as they are historically collapsing right now. Our friend Michelle is also in this group. That's Terry McGinnis. Yeah, so... it would be Altuve is having a historically bad year. He made 3 errors in 1 game the other day. I would love for them to absolutely fall apart. And just other interesting stories around the league right now in baseball. The Reds would make the playoffs. The Padres would make the playoffs. A couple of teams that I picked as sleepers coming into the year. They're not doing great, but they're not doing terribly either. The Rockies would win the West. Baseball, though, very interesting. And to be fair, even though the Cardinals are still quarantined right now, they seem to have gotten a lot of it under control. They have a lot of quality control people now going into with all the teams. They've also disclosed that there will be huge fines if anyone breaks the quarantines that have now been imposed. So a little too late, baseball, but better late than never, as here we go. We got Mewtwo's. We got Tyrannitars. I got my Tyranitar here going against Deoxys using Crunch. Crunch, again, a dark-type move.
I'm using Chandelier, excuse me.
That's a ghost type. That's a good one to use. Deoxys here coming in strong. Already taking out half my energy from my Tyranitar. But again, using Crunch. Somebody used Meteor Shower. Again, just trying to dig in here. Already seeing it. Trying to look live. Here.
Nothing like live rating on
live raid. There goes my Tyranitar. Now it's time for my shiny. Rhyperior with Rock Wrecker. Oh, that's why Deoxys has Hyper Beam. I am now
using Aggron. And
nice. That's a
Rock
Steel
our friends.
Type.
This is like what the Rise of Skywalker should have ended like, with all of us working together to take down this evil Deoxys.
Yes, Deoxys has a Hyper Beam, which is very good because it's a normal type. It hurts everyone equally as a normal type move. No real strengths, no real weaknesses. Does a ton of damage. Classic move from the original Pokemon games. We also see we got a Metagross there on the other side there. Metagross, a Psychic Steel type. Metagross is probably one they called in Meteor Shower. Deoxys at half strength. We're only a quarter of the way through our time as I'm using Shadow Sneak with my Giratina. This should be a good one here as we go in now. And Deoxys using another Hyper Beam. not very effective, though, against my Giratina.
Took my guy out. Jeez, I just had a Torterra. He just took out big time.
Oh,
what's funny, Ray, is it just proves that there's nothing you can't do play-by-play too well. All right, I'm bringing out the big guns. I got my Rhyperior out now, so hopefully
we got 2 Rhyperior out. My Giratina just got knocked out. Now my Rhyperior. It's Rhyperiors everywhere. Rhyperiors everywhere. Good God Almighty, it's Rhyperiors everywhere. Rocket, Stone Edge, Rock Wrecker, Stone Edge. Deoxys is coming in with another Hyper Beam.
Stone Edge. Oh no, I just used my Stone Edge, so hopefully that helps me out. Ray, here's a good question. Does dodging in this game actually do anything?
No, it's worthless. It's absolutely worthless.
I'm not crazy, right?
No, you're better. Well, the time you waste dodging could be used for like 3 attacks.
That's what I'm trying to say.
We've all realized it's all worthless.
It doesn't do anything. Right?
We're at halftime, and there it is. Deoxys, couple more hits.
We're going to do it.
He's done. He's knocked out. Down goes Deoxys. The legendary Deoxys is knocked out. And now it's going to be fun to try and catch him live.
We all have to try. It says you win, everybody. There it is on the phone. We win.
Our friendship level increases with everyone.
Yeah, well, we're
already best friends, but
yeah,
me and Caitlin.
12 games. By the way, if you're at home listening to this or watching this and you've never played this game, what's wrong with you? You got to jump in. 10,000 experience points for this one.
Yes.
Again, if you think this is nerdy, what are you doing here? This is all the entire point of it.
That's the entire
point. Now, Ray will absolutely catch this Deoxys because he's
We're going to try.
I have 18 Pokeballs to try and catch him, though, so I'm very excited
I have only
that.
14 because I'm red team.
Right.
What's your CP for your Deoxys?
I will let you know. Hold on, he's in the ball right now. He's popping out. 1780, so not massive.
So not massive, but stronger than the one I'm trying to catch, which is 1772.
Okay. Well, that was a really bad year in America. It would get a lot better after that for the historian buffs out there.
Yeah, 1780 was a better year because that's when I believe the Revolutionary War came to an end.
Yeah, that or 81, sometime around then. But well, the thing is about and now we're geeking out with history, but like the thing with the Revolutionary War was that it ended obviously when Cornwallis surrendered or signed it, but the war still was going on because word didn't get around to the colonies that it was over.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's pretty interesting. This guy is really fighting me, Ray. I'm going to use a golden raspberry. I guess.
Yeah, I've been using golden raspberries. Yeah. He's fighting me as well. I've been having trouble catching legendaries lately, mostly because I already have them. Yeah. But I've been using the golden raz to try and get him, and I'm down to my. Let's see, I got plenty, but this is the.
Yikes! Yeah, he's not letting me catch him here. This is going to be
I'm having some problems with the little of the sensors. I'm sure that this is interesting, folks. Yeah, so this is, of course, as we're trying to play here, as I put it up to the screen. He just popped out.
Oh, man.
All right, we got.
should I try a different berry? Maybe a nana berry? I mean, that's powerful.
Do you have any silver pineapples?
I did. I used 2 already. It didn't do anything.
That's a shame. All right, here we go. Trying again.
All
Great
right,
throw. Silver pineapple.
Come on, one.
Wow! He popped out. Yeah, he is struggling. By the way, new thing they added to the game, for those of you who don't know, if you're not a Pokemon Go player, is on your last throw, if he shakes more than once, it's an automatic catch at this point.
He's in there again. Wow, I got 10 left, so I hope I'm going to get him. Maybe I have to make an excellent throw to get him.
Maybe. I'm down to 5. Again, I had less throws available to me than Lee did. That was not a good throw. Not a good throw on my part there.
I wonder if it even matters. Oh, wait. Oh, man, he popped back out again. What a jerk.
Well, I caught him. I got him.
All right. Well, you're better than me, I guess. No, here we go. Let me try and get him again. And tossing.
Do you have Deoxys, Lee?
I don't.
Wow. Would that be
I just made an excellent throw. So let's find out. So for those of you listening who don't play the game, there's 3 types of throw, or 4. There's regular, yeah. All right, very good.
All right, awesome.
I'm you're getting live. What's funny is Caitlin's gonna have to watch this back.
Yeah.
Knowing that it had happened, and look at new Pokemon. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Ray and I are Pokemon masters. By that I mean Ray.
Yes.
And there we go.
I'm going to turn this into candy.
Yes, that makes sense for you.
Because I only held on to him. I was going to hold on to him in case you didn't catch yours.
Should I power him up? I should right away, right?
I always do. That's me. So
there you go. An 1870 Deoxys, also known as a 1960s Star Trek villain, right there.
There we go.
All right.
So there we go. Fantastic. So
that was an interesting segment. Thank you for sticking with us.
Yes, we appreciate it. So I'm going to revive my Pokemon now here. Make sure they're all good to go for the next battle, whenever it may be.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about baseball. So
yes.
the thing about baseball right now that's bugging me a little bit is I have a lot of unknowns. I don't know if I like the fact that they're soldiering on. Part of me as a sports fan is like, okay, good. They keep going. There's still some sports baseball fans who enjoy this. Part of me is also like, God, this is messed up.
Yeah.
The other part is like, the Phillies went on a little bit of a winning streak there, but it's just there's so many intangibles right now in the game.
Yeah.
And what ifs? What if we didn't sit out for a week because of the Marlins, who are somehow in first place? Like, how am I not going to look at this World Series at the end of the year? It depends who's in it, obviously, but be like, man, there's no way of knowing if this was the way, the best that we could have gotten. And again, look, I accepted a long time ago that baseball, football, basketball, and hockey are all going to have to do like, well, whatever happens, happens. We're trying. It's nothing we can do to change the world. And and yes, look, even I will admit this. As disappointed as I am in baseball, there is a level of forgiveness that I'm willing. I mean, this pandemic's not their fault, obviously. Okay, they have no control over that, but they do have control over the prepare. And I'm still not on board. And this is what we'll do. As the season goes on, we'll keep talking about the podcast, and we'll see when we get to the postseason if, how I feel about it. Not that my opinion's the be-all, end-all for anyone else, but it is a document. We're documenting what it's like to be a fan right now. And, look, who knows what's going to happen in the future. We might talk about this in 20 years, and I might change my tune. But we'll see. As of right now, not super impressed, not very happy, having a hard time watching it. Especially with the NHL playoffs being so great. All right. Now, keep in mind, I am a hockey guy. All right. But, yeah, we'll see. And, I look, especially with fresh off the Astros scandal, which, again, nothing was done. It's just it's disappointing.
Absolutely horrendous.
It's a disappointing year for baseball, the last full year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And it's just, I'm still watching because baseball is my first sport. So for me, baseball is I can't not watch it. I was watching it before we recorded today. But it is tough. It is definitely tough because even yesterday, Yankees another doubleheader. This weird 7-inning doubleheader. It changes how you play the game, and it's just really weird. And I guess that if you're gonna experiment, this would be the season to experiment. But I'm just
it's devastating.
It's devastating. It is. It absolutely is.
There's no other way to talk about it.
You know what else is devastating? I made a comment on Twitter the other day. All right, and let me explain this, folks, to you. So me and a buddy of mine, Steve Googs from back east, big Yankees fan as well, and we're talking, and he made the comment. We were talking about how Paul O'Neill, current Yankee broadcast team, by the way, is Michael Kay. He's been doing it for years. David Cohn, former Yankee pitcher, also pitched for the Mets, also pitched very briefly for the Red Sox, but also I believe the Blue Jays. I think also the Blue Jays. Anyway. And, of course, Paul O'Neill, former Red, former Yankee, outfielder. So you have a hitting perspective, you have a pitching perspective. And me and Googs go, you know what? Paul O'Neill is the current Phil Rizzuto, a.k.a. the Scooter. For those of you who don't know, forever ago, Yankee shortstop, won a bunch of World Series, but was for many, many years, almost 40 years, I think, was our color commentator, worked with Mel Allen, worked with a lot of different guys in the booth. And he just had a very down-to-earth way, but a fun air about him in the booth as well, and Paul O'Neill definitely has that as well. So where Paul O'Neill is the modern Scooter. So I tweet to Michael Kay, to David Cohn, to Paul O'Neill that he's the modern Scooter. This is the Philadelphia doubleheader, by the way. The first game during Game 1 of the Philadelphia doubleheader. During Game 2 of the Philadelphia doubleheader, almost verbatim from my tweet, Michael Kay calls Paul O'Neill the modern Scooter, and I'm like, that's my tweet. That was me and Steve's conversation. Yeah. That's what. Where's my credit? I gave him a free lunch. They talked about that for a half inning because it's hard to fill airtime in baseball. Like they took my tweet. I got no credit for it.
No credit, none. Right?
None. And I tweeted at them again, and they still didn't recognize it. That's BS. I'm calling you out, Michael Kay.
Well, we're calling on the Geeks Who Like Sports Army to call out Michael Kay on Twitter as well. So listen, typically I'm not huge on getting credit, because I think with the internet, it's like, if you take things, it's almost a compliment. But on the national broadcasting scale, not so much. That's not cool at all. You could have just said a fan tweeted. That would have been enough for Ray, probably.
That's it. That's it. Just give a little credit where it's due. Don't play it off as if it was your idea or your realization, because it wasn't.
Cool. Yeah.
Michael Kay with his giant head up his butt.
Yeah, come on, Michael Kay. That's not cool. All right.
Yeah.
So like I said, when someone steals something online, I get it because you never really know where those things start anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't like it on a national Yes Network broadcasting standpoint.
Unbelievable. So there it is. Officially now. By the way, if you watch my Twitch streams, I'm coming for you, Michael. I'm better than you at calling
speaking
the
of
Yankee
that,
games.
if you're not following Ray on Twitch yet, why?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're over 500 followers now, actually.
Yeah, you need to be following Ray on Twitch. It is worth your time, trust me, if you want some good entertainment or some real baseball without COVID.
Yeah, exactly, because we're still playing even though we're simming some games, we're still playing a 162 game season.
That, or if you're a huge fan of feudal Japan, why are you not there?
Yes, again, goes to Tsushima. We're almost done with that. We're about 80% of the way through the story, so I think maybe another week worth of playing, we'll be done with it. But yeah, so that does it for our sports section today. We're gonna wrap things up now with, of course, our mashup, and this is a good one. For those of you who don't know, there's a cartoon when Lee and I were kids. I know, yes, Lee makes all the mashups. So
I have an idea.
Yeah.
And
there was a cartoon. It was starred Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Wayne Gretzky, as Lee mentioned earlier. Yes. It was called Pro Stars, and it basically as if the three of them were like they used
superheroes.
They were superheroes. They were basically like an international crime fighting team that used trick stuff based on their sport, like exploding basketballs or hockey pucks with radar, and like
I call this the Wheaties golden era.
Yes.
When sports stars were clean and drugs were not a thing, and they ate their cereal and they didn't do drugs and all this stuff.
And they said their prayers and take their vitamins.
Exactly. So this cartoon was a big part of our youth. I really do for the younger audience that might not know this. Definitely look this up because it was a pretty interesting concept at the time. It's just Pro Stars. Just search Pro Stars Wayne Gretzky. Now, because I made the mashup, this is the rules. We are going to get to pick one athlete from the four major sports, and you can potentially if you want, pick a fifth athlete from another sport on this, Ray. The original Pro Stars were three athletes because Bo Jackson played both baseball and football. So that's why there was only three. So our Pro Stars lineup will have a minimum of four from the four major sports in America and an optional fifth if you choose to have so. So, Ray, I'm going to let you go first. I think some of these are very obvious. We'll just go sport by sport, all right, to start. Yeah. So, I mean, let's just do the obvious ones. Basketball is obviously LeBron James.
Yeah, LeBron.
Okay,
yes,
it's obviously LeBron James. There's nobody else that could take the mantle. Again, if you disagree with us, let us know. But LeBron James is obvious for basketball. As you turn to hockey, I think it's obvious, too, that it's Sidney Crosby. There is not another name. I do not think Connor McDavid is old enough to be on the Pro Stars, nor is he fun enough.
See, I disagree here.
Good.
Because I think Sidney is going. It would be a wet blanket. I don't think he'd be a very good person on this team. You know who'd be a lot of fun?
Who?
Ovechkin. I think
Alex Ovechkin would be on the Pro Stars, not Sidney Crosby. I like that because it's not a Penguin, and I agree with you, and I'm completely changing my mind. The Russian spy, Ovechkin. So actually, Ray, we both agree it is Ovechkin.
Yeah, the fun, drunk all the time Russian guy. Who's
great,
like just,
great pick. Yeah. I rescind my Sidney Crosby. In fact, Sidney Crosby is the villain in the show. Now that
I agree with that more wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so we know that that makes a lot of sense. Ovechkin and obviously
LeBron.
LeBron. Okay, now when you get to football, I actually think this is obvious too. A lot of people are going to say Tom Brady, and 10 years ago you would have been right. But I think the obvious choice today is none other than Mahomes. I mean, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. He's fun. He owns the Royals. I mean,
exactly.
It's got to be Patty Mahomes.
He could actually be your two-sport guy, actually, going back and forth.
He plays baseball, right? So Patrick Mahomes, and then we get, obviously, to baseball. Now, do you want to hear mine first, or do you want to be yours first? Because, again, another one I think is kind of obvious.
I think baseball is kind of obvious, too, to me. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm also going to say this. Maybe a backup to Mahomes would be Russell Wilson in football, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be Brady, but yeah, for sure. I mean,
I think his prime is past him now. I think
Brady is the like Charlie's Angels. He's Charlie. Like, you know, when they go there, hello Tom, hello Angels. I could see him, doing that. Gronk, be quiet. Anyway.
I could see that for sure too. But I think we agree Mahomes for sure. I would say Wilson as a backup, another two-sport guy who actually played with the Yankees in spring training last year.
He did. But I wonder if we're going to disagree on this baseball one. So do you want to go first or second?
So I'm gonna have some caveats with the two with baseball. So you go first.
I think it's Judge.
Real okay.
Yeah. He just makes a lot of sense on that team.
Yes.
I know you got Trout. I know. I mean, even Harper could be the hat thrown in there. I mean, you got a lot of guys, and obviously, I mean, baseball's tough because you got pitching, and then you got because
Right.
Cole would be a guy on there too. But Judge, he's got the bat, man. He's the super hitter.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that needs to be.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So Judge.
I actually agree. I think it'd be Judge 1, Trout 2.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where it goes for me. I think Trout for a long time was kind of becoming the face of baseball. Then he got hurt a lot. Yeah. He got that massive contract, and I think that I think that Judge, not that the contract made him suddenly now the villain of baseball. No, it's just
See, Judge is on the team. Trout's the side hero character that shows up once in a while when they just need a little extra help.
Yeah, he's a team up that happens once in a while. But I think that also Judge playing. I hate to say playing for the Yankees, obviously the biggest franchise in baseball. I think that the Chiefs, obviously, Mahomes is they're a winner right now. LeBron with the Lakers, Ovechkin with the Caps. They just won just a couple of years ago. I think that these are really the faces of their respective sports at this particular time.
And then the fifth for me is Serena Williams.
That's a good wild card.
Yeah, absolutely. She's on the team. Again, like I said, we're doing it by sport. I don't want to ignore women's sports.
Yeah.
So we're not. Serena Williams is easily on the team.
Yeah, no, for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
If this was like the X-Men pick your 5 kind of thing, right? Because there's really 5 X-Men.
Yes.
Yeah, Serena's obviously the Jean Grey. She's or she's more like a beast. She's actually the beast. She's very smart.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with
absolutely
Serena
dominant.
Williams.
Yeah, I don't know who the psychic would be on the team.
The psychic on the team, Wayne Gretzky probably comes out of nowhere to revive his role because he could see it.
He'd be the Professor X. He's the Professor X of the group.
Yeah, Bo. Where's Bo? That's the other question. Where's Bo Jackson in all this?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
We know Michael Jordan has become the villain of the show.
Right. Yeah.
So he's gone off and become the villain. Now they're all fighting Michael Jordan before his huge redemption story called
Bo has started X-Force somewhere else. That's where
exactly.
Bo is. Bo has,
with his bow and arrow, which he actually does. Yeah. He actually does archery. But obviously we want to know what you think. If you had to make a new Pro Stars cartoon, who would be on it? Keeping in mind that obviously skill plays into it, but so does personality, so does charisma and character development. Who would be your lineup for Pro Stars? And again, you can pick up to 5 to be on there. Pro Stars 2020, the COVID years.
Yes. So that'll do it for today's show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you had fun. We did a lot of great stuff today. A lot of great segments. A live Pokemon Go raid.
Yeah, it was worth it. I produced there, and I was like, we're doing this. We're doing this mainly because I didn't think you'd do it off the air, and I needed the Deoxys anyway. So everybody wins. Woohoo!
Fantastic. Awesome. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, be sure to share with your friends. Give us those 5-star reviews on iTunes. Check out geekswholikesports.com. We always appreciate it. But until next time, for Lee, I am Ray. This has been episode 69 of Geeks Who Like Sports. Nice. We'll see you next time, everybody. Good night.